Here we go. Now you guys can't actually talk, but if you could, know that you're being recorded. So anyway, it should only be me on the call as far as talking. There is a way to type in questions, but I won't be looking at the questions until later, and more on that in a second. But anyway, today we're going to be discussing charitable giving. It's probably one of my favorite topics to discuss. It's something that is on my heart, and just is every day. And I really want this time to be valuable to you. But I do value your time, so I'm going to try to go through this quickly and succinctly, which means I won't cover everything there is to know about charitable giving, using your policies. I won't cover everything there is to know in this webinar. So if you'd like to delve a bit deeper and get personal, just let me know. As I said, this is one of the more interesting and exciting topics to me, so I'm always open to discuss it with you. So don't worry about my time or anything like that. It's just a pleasure of mine to do so. So we're going to be covering charitable giving today. A couple ways to do it. I think this will help you. I know that it's just studying this has helped me and has gotten me more excited for the future. So if I can relay that to you, it'll be a job well done. And I wanted to lay the foundation for everything that we're going to be covering today. And in God's Word, God says that He wants us to be cheerful givers. He doesn't want us to give reluctantly. We shouldn't be giving out of obligation or fear or anything of that sort, but to give truly with a cheerful heart. And I find it is so much easier to give cheerfully when you've built what I'm going to explain as a giving machine. A giving machine is something that always has money and is producing extra money all the time, and it allows us to give more and more. And so God says that He blesses those that give, and He'll return to them even more than they've given. And so the more we can give in faith, we're giving God an opening to be able to produce blessings that we really wouldn't have been able to get if we hoarded our money. So I'm going to go into a couple things, but that is the foundation here, is that, man, we really ought to learn to give more and give cheerfully, and all it's going to take is potentially a little change in how you give. And so what we're going to learn today, and as I said, I value your time above everything else. And so I think we set this up for like an hour or an hour and a half. I hope I don't even use all of that. So I'm thinking like 40 minutes, 30 minutes, I don't know, something. We're going to get right into it. But three main things we're going to cover today. And I already kind of mentioned one. I want to show you guys what I call the giving machine, okay? I want to show you how you can build the giving machine. And I think it's probably the most exciting thing out there that I know of. I mean, I'm just super happy about it. So we're going to discuss how to build a giving machine that is just constantly pumping money, that's solely designated for you to be able to give more and more. That's the first thing we're going to discuss. We're also going to discuss how you can start giving exponentially. So I'm going to call that exponential giving. How you can give exponentially more than what you could have done if you didn't start using this policy. So most of you on this call probably are already working with us to a certain extent. And so I don't know exactly who is on this call, but you're probably, I would say, probably doing banking already. You may have already been using your policies to give, in which cases maybe a little bit of review. You may have never used a policy to give, but if we can simply show you how to change how you give and you can give more, I think you're going to love it. So we're going to talk about exponential giving by using a policy, how it can operate that way. And then lastly, we're also going to discuss how you can donate a large of money and get it all back, or what I call recapture giving. So those are the three main things we're going to discuss today: the giving machine, how to give more, and how to start recapturing the gift and larger gifts. So for those of you who may not be doing anything with us right now, for those of you who don't know what we do, we're specialists in this strategy called becoming your own banker. And so our goal in life is to show you how you can use a special kind of life insurance policies designed a certain way to finance things and to change how we pay for things like cars or homes or investments, and of course today, charitable giving and many other things. So we'll focus on charitable giving today, but it can be used for just about anything. And since I just wanted to preface this whole meeting by saying, since I started the Becoming Your Own Banker strategy, since I started using it, my giving has been able to increase drastically without me even having to give a second thought to it. And I'm here to say I don't think that could be the same. I don't think I could say the same if I was focused on stuffing money into retirement programs, mutual funds, the stock market. All those things are fine and good, but it's this one strategy that's opened up not only resources, but also my barriers in my mind that's allowed me to drastically increase my giving without even having to think about it. And I love the freedom and the flexibility that this banking strategy offers that nothing else comes close to. So I hope in our short time today I can relay to you some things that have happened in my life and in my mind since I started doing this, that you would be able to say, oh my gosh, it's okay to give more than I thought. I don't have to worry about it. And so I want you to experience the same freedom that I do, the same control that I do, and that's why it's so important that you understand the tool that you probably already have if you're on this call. So first off, now that I've got that disclaimer, I'm going to discuss with you what I call the giving machine. So what do I mean, the giving machine? And what's funny is I'm not an artist by any means, but I like to pretend that I get paid for my artwork. Which unfortunately probably means I don't get paid very well because my artwork is terrible, as you'll see. But this is the picture that I have in my mind, and I want to draw it out for you. So I've never worked in a factory, but it just seems to me like this could, this is similar to what maybe a factory assembly line might look like. And right here we have the giving machine here, and it looks beautiful right there. I don't learn to write in the lines. I never learned that in kindergarten. But this is a conveyor belt. This is the giving machine. This is the picture I had. And the whole purpose of the giving machine is the fact that you can put $1 into the giving machine, and it will spit out more money than what you put in. So if I put $1 in to the giving machine, it will, without me having to do any work myself, it will produce more dollars to give than what I put in. That's simply what I mean, and I don't have to think about it. It's on autopilot. That's the goal. We want you to, without thinking, without having to work any harder, simply by changing how you're functioning, be able to give more. So that's the machine. You put $1 in, the machine provides more than $1 out. And a giving machine is something that every year will pump out the money that you need to give. Every year, it's there solely for your giving, and it will always be able to produce what you need. But I think of it like a business, and you don't just want just what you need to be there. You need to be making a profit. So just like a business might build this assembly line and build this machine, they're not doing it just to stay the same. They're doing it hopefully to make a profit. So this giving machine not only has to give you what you need, but hopefully it will create an abundance, and it will create a profit so that you can give more than if you didn't have the machine in place. The main thing you need to do is understand how to properly operate the machine, just like anything else, to maximize your efficiency. So that's going to be the goal of today. The machine, as you know, as you've been working with this, is going to be a banking policy, of course, but I want you to think about it in this way and open up your mind to it so that we can actually create the machine and utilize it in ways that you probably haven't utilized it yet. That's why you're hopefully on this call. And so what I've done is I'm going to go over 2 examples today, and as I said, I shouldn't take very much time of your time today, maybe another 20 minutes. So just I'm not going to do idle words. But the first one, I like to call it the cheerful giver. And what I want to do, and let me draw this back up. I was at the bottom. What I wanted to do is, this is more of an example of building a policy, and it's something that we're using every single year. And so many of us, especially if you're on this call, I mean, I tithe to my church. more than even the regular tithe. I mean, I give more than what the tithe is, technically 10%, but I give far more than that. But regardless, that is what this is more based on, is just this annual giving. And so just like with everything, many times we suggest starting a policy solely for charitable giving, or at least designating a policy that you already have for charitable giving. You can use existing policies to operate and do well, but we have found that you'll actually receive better results and more growth if you capitalize an entirely new policy and put money to work, new money, not money that you already planned on, but new money, and just using your imagination to figure out how you can do it. And so what we've done here is we've said, okay, I need to get the giving machine started. I need to get it working. And machines cost money. And so if you wanted to go buy a machine that's going to spit the money out to give and make you a ton of money over your lifetime so you can give more, I think it's a worthy cause. And so what we've done here in this policy, in this example, is we built a policy and we paid a premium for it for 5 years. We put in $10,000. And remember, I don't really care about the dollar number. You could be giving a lot more. You could be giving a lot less. And you could need a bigger policy or a smaller. But this is just an easy one to follow with. So we paid premiums to build the policy up. We did that for 5 years, and then we actually stopped paying premiums into the policy. And all we're going to do is use this policy for the rest of our life just to give. That's all we're going to do. And we're just assuming that in this example, this individual normally gave $10,000 a year. That's why you'll see here in this charitable gift column that we're giving $10,000. But remember, I mentioned to you that you probably need to understand how to operate the machine. And so the machine, the banking tool that we use, the policy, needs to have oil. And the oil, I like to call it, is a little bit of extra interest being paid into the policy to help the machine continue to run and to operate well. So here in this example, at year 5, we had $45,000 of cash value built up in this policy that we've earmarked for charitable giving. And we go out and we take out $10,000, and let's just say you normally give to your church or to the charity that you'd like, and you give every month. Okay, you just give a monthly gift every month. Well, in this example, how about instead we decide to give the money that we normally would tithe? Let's just say we give it at the very beginning of the year. So normally we tend to give around $10,000 a year. And normally that's done every month, maybe $800, $850 a month or something like that. And we decide, let's go ahead and give the full $10,000 right at the beginning of the year, or maybe the end of the year or something like that. And so the church gets all the money up front, whatever the charity is of your choice, which is great. I think they would tell you, if you were to come to ask them, hey, I will give you $800 a month for the next 12 months, or I'll just cut you a check right now for $10,000. I think most people in their right mind would say, I'll go ahead and take the $10,000 now. So it allows them to operate and do things they want to do maybe even sooner because they've got the money right away, which is good. And what we'll do is the money that we normally had been giving, we're going to replenish. We're not going to give it to the church. We already gave them the money. What we're going to do is put it back into the policy. But instead of just paying back the principal, remember we're doing banking here, we're going to pay ourselves back with interest. So I just chose an arbitrary number of about 10%. And I said, well, hey, if I'm going to give $10,000 a year to the church, I want to repay myself not with $10,000. I'll repay myself with $11,000. And so that's an extra 10% to really help the machine operate better. And so I repaid the policy back with $11,000. So essentially what I'm doing is that's about $80 a month extra, or about $20 a week extra. And I'm hoping that you'll see that it's worth the extra $20 a week for what you can actually create using this system and how much more money you can give. But all we're really doing, as you can see, is simply changing how we're giving. It's very simple. We're not really adding a lot of complexity. We built a policy, more on that in just a second. We built a policy up, and we're going to use that to fund the giving, and we're just simply going to change where our monthly contributions go. So we'll give one chunk to the church, and then we'll repay monthly. And I had a client of ours actually, who maybe even be on the call. He even gave a good point that he sees it, that he loves this idea of giving up front to the church as an act of faith. So in other words, many of us, we give based on how much we actually earned. But he says it's a whole new level of faith and trusting in God, that if I give up front for the year, it's an act of faith that God will produce what I would have needed to actually give that. And you can keep stretching and stretching and give more and more in that way. And so I definitely love that it's a faith exercise as well to do it this way, and I love that. And we can all use a little bit more faith. But you'll see right here what we've done is all we've really done is change where we're giving from. And you'll see even in the very first year that we gave, just very simply, I'm trying to make this as simple as I can, you'll see that we had $45,000 in the account when we chose to give. We took out $10,000. We added back $11,000. So if I had a checking account that had $45,122 in it, and I added $1,000 to that account, I would have $46,122 if I used the checking account as my giving machine. But you'll notice that I don't have $46,122. I actually have $47,552, or I've got about $1,400 more inside the policy than I would have if I just continued paying cash for my gifts out of my checking account. And that $1,400 just appeared magically to you because of the growth of the policy. And here's what's amazing. You actually don't pay taxes on the growth of a life insurance policy. And this is what I love. Let's just say at the end of the year, the church hosts a missionary or something similar to that, and you say, man, I really feel in my heart to give, or maybe they're doing a building project, or they've got something going on, or some cause that you follow is raising money for a certain thing, and you have just randomly just appeared an extra $1,400 in your account that you don't have to pay taxes on, that you can now just say, okay, I can just pull that money right out and give it to whoever that was, and I will even get an additional tax deduction for doing that, and I didn't even have to claim or work for the money that I was just able to give. This is what I mean by the giving machine, where you can put in $1 and actually take out more than $1 without even paying taxes on it, and give it and get additional tax deductions on money that just appeared tax-free. And I want as much of this as I can possibly get. And so all we do is we just live life. That's all we're doing. We're giving money like we always have, but we've just changed how we operate, and we're adding a little bit extra to pump this process along, so that 20 years down the road from when we started this policy to do this, we're now sitting on $94,000 of cash, just sitting here ready to go. You'll notice that from year to year, it's growing by over $4,000 a year, the cash value is. And remember, we're taking out 10 and we're putting in 11. So we're really only adding an extra $1,000 to the system, which means here in this year we had almost $3,500 to borrow that we didn't have to come up with, that has just appeared in our giving machine. We didn't have to come up with it. It just produced it. And we have isolated this policy solely for giving so that we can give more and give freely. I tell you, it makes the world of difference if you have money in essentially I call it the giving fund, or I'm talking here the giving machine, that you know this is just money, this is the Lord's money. This is money that I am choosing to give, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Ray Poteet, who you may have met, you may not have met, but Ray Poteet, the founder of this company, who you may have met, he's been doing this for, 16 years now. And he's saying, man, I'm having to find new places to give money to because the growth of my giving policies is getting just so larger and larger each year that I'm having to find new causes to give to, just to find places to put the money that the machine is producing. And that's really what we want to do. Is we have $3,500, let's just say isolate that 1 year, $3,500 in which we can give that we didn't have to come up with, that just appeared in our isolated giving machine that we've built. And so I just want to keep going down. I think we started on a 50-year-old. Yep. So we started on a 50-year-old male in this example. We're just going to assume that he lives and does this for 35 years. And so 35 years later, we're going to call this maybe his benchmark year where he passes away. And you'll notice I kept the giving the same. I know many of you say, well, maybe he would have stopped working at 65 and maybe his giving would have gone down. I really don't think so. Hopefully you're able to build wealth and do things that can increase your giving and maintain it forever, because you'll always be wanting to give. You'll have assets, you'll have policies. This should just be one small isolated policy in your grand scheme of things, but we've isolated it as your giving fund so that you can make sure you operate the machine properly in order to always have an abundance to give, and to give cheerfully. I can tell you, it just makes it so much easier if a cause comes up, and as I talked about maybe just back here in year 20, a cause comes in and you need to raise some money and you have $3,500 just sitting there that appeared in profit, tax-free, that you can just write a check for without even thinking. That's where you want to be. I just don't want to have to worry about giving when God puts something on my heart to give to. I want to be able to move quickly. I want to be able to and give freely, and that's why you have to have one that at least we think you do. Our goal would be to have one set aside just for this, so that you can give out of that policy whenever you want, however you want, as fast as you want, because I'm setting this aside for this purpose, and it's great. And so at the end of this time period, let's wrap up on this first example. So at the end of this time period, he's given pretty much just normally what he's always been doing. He did capitalize the policy, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But he's just giving as he's normally done. At the end of this time frame, you'll notice he's sitting on $187,000 of cash value inside that policy. All of that money was just sitting waiting for him to give. So in our example, we didn't show anything other than just his normal tithe. But man, if you had that money and you didn't use it, and that's a shame. But that's just to show you what you've built. So we have $187,000 of cash value, but he's going to probably pass away around this time. He's coming up on 85, and his death benefit is almost $250,000. And we're going to say on this giving policy, let's just go ahead and leave that death benefit to the charity. And that is a huge number. All we've done so far, by the way, is we've put in $50,000 to fund our giving machine. We have given $300,000 to the church or whatever the charity you wanted, and we've replenished with 330. I don't need to put that in parentheses. So really, what we've got here is we've got $50,000 that we've put in, and we've also paid ourselves essentially the interest of $30,000 here, which means that we've actually pretty much what we've got in the game is $80,000 more than what we've taken out over those 35-year period of time. And that money has produced an exponential return to the kingdom and to whatever it is you're focusing on, that we have turned 80 grand into $250,000 over our lifetime. And we've been able to give every year in the interim what we had already planned on doing. And I mean, that it just blows my mind completely, what we've been able to do. And to be able to leave something like $250,000 to your church or to a foundation or a charity that you love whenever you pass away, not even recognizing the fact that we had a lot of cash to give as they were raising money in their lifetime, but to be able to leave that kind of money just by mainly building the machine up and changing how you give or how you gave is so beautiful to me. I love it. But the question really is, okay, Nate, that's all good and fair, but how are we going? The main question that most people are going to have is, how can we actually get this thing built? That's the big key. I mean, as we talked about, the extra 1,000 a year that we use in our example here, which is just a number I pulled out of a hat. It doesn't mean anything. It's just simple. That's only $20 a week or $80 a month. Many people, that's not a concern. That's just the oil that makes the gears turn. But it's actually, how are we going to buy the machine? How are we going to capitalize it? And that's the strategy that we need to discuss. You can actually use this cash value in these early years to give. The issue is you'll notice that for the first 2 years, we pay premiums, and the growth of the policy that year is not as high as the premiums were. So if I put in 10, I can only borrow 6. Well, now I could put in 10, I could borrow 6 out, and I only have to supplement by adding $4,000 from somewhere else. Same thing next year. I put in 10, and it grows from 5 to 12. It's about 7. So now I need to supplement with another $3,000 from somewhere else. And then you'll notice in year 3, I put in 10, and the cash value grows from 12 to 22. Well, now I actually don't need to supplement anywhere. I've actually got enough money to give, and I've been able to build it with very little out-of-pocket outlay from elsewhere. But it is true that to build it and make it really functional, you may want to be able to, you'll just need to find a source to be able to do that, whether that's other policies that you have. Maybe we can pull this money from other policies to build your charitable fund. And you can use other policies to build this one. Pull some cash value out to build your charitable fund. Maybe you've got cash sitting around idly. Maybe you've got a property with some equity in it, or an investment that you can move into. There's always ideas, and that's why I said I'm not going to be able to cover everything in my short time. I've already gone 25 minutes, and I told you I was going to try to be done in 40, so I got to move on. But essentially, that's why you'd want to meet with somebody. We've designed this so many different ways. The question, don't be thinking of all the reasons why you might not be able to build the fund and get the machine working. Try to use your imagination to think of ways that you can actually get it going, because once it's going, it's just spitting out money more than you're putting in for the rest of your life. That just frees you up to give more and more and more, and to leave a legacy to that charity that you wouldn't have been able to do if you didn't use it this way. So this is more of a tithe approach, but as we kind of mentioned, there's a lot of money growing in here, so I wanted to give another example of what it would be like. We can continue to do this as you see, but maybe here in year 20 we have 94,000. Maybe there's this huge, maybe you want to build a school in Kenya or the Philippines, or you want to do something that's much bigger, and something comes onto your heart that you want to do, and you want to be able to give a huge amount of money and actually be able to find a way to get it back. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, is that it frees you up just completely. I found that pretty much any time a cause that I feel good about comes to me, because I have this, I can give so much more freely than if I didn't, because I have these policies. And without even thinking about it, because I know how to get the money back. So that's the next example, and this one is actually a real-life example that Ray, as I mentioned earlier, dealt with when we first learned about giving to charities using policies. So remember, guys, we at Living Wealth, we used to be known as Alpha and Omega. Ray was probably one of the best, if not the biggest, pioneer of the infinite banking concept, becoming your own banker. And there was nobody to turn to learn these types of things. So we learned them. He learned them. This one, it actually comes out of a story that he tells. He can probably tell you the story far better than me. I wish he was here. But he talks about this, that him and a group of other people were wanting to start a ministry, and they came to him with the idea of starting a ministry. He was a part of the board, I believe. And they came and they said, hey, we're going to need, I don't know, it's about $100,000 to get the ministry started that we can raise. And they were having a little bit of trouble maybe raising money or something like that. So what they ended up doing is saying that they were going to put their homes up for collateral to get a loan so they could start the ministry they wanted to start. And Ray poo-pooed on that, said, no way, we're not going to wait I can raise the money. There's no way you should have to do that. I can raise the money. And so he had about 3-4 months to raise the money. And so he left the meeting, and he said, I'm going to go raise the money to go do this. And he'll tell you, as soon as he walked out the door, it left his brain. And about a couple weeks before the money that was needed, the head of the ministry called and said, "Hey, Ray, how are you doing with the money?" He goes, "Well, I haven't raised all of it." The truth was he hadn't raised any of it. And so he was too proud, I guess, at that point just to say he hadn't raised anything. So he says, "You know what, I've just got to find, maybe 10 people who can give 10 grand to get this off the ground." And then he made a couple calls and couldn't get anything done. And then he said, "I got to find 5 people, or maybe I got to find 20. And he went through and he ended up saying, "Man, this is on me. I'm the one who made this mistake." And he was thinking through, "Man, I don't want to go into that room and say I failed and I didn't do it." And that's when the Lord spoke to him and said, "Ray, I want you to give the money." And Ray says, "What money?" He says, "I know you've got money in these policies. I want to show you how to give it." And so that was the beginning of really where we learned about this whole process. And so here is actually more of based on that story of what actually happened, where this was already a seasoned policy. Think of it back on that other spreadsheet here, that you've had a policy, you've got some money. We're in some of these later years here. We've had a policy for a little while with money in it, okay? And we want to give something big, and that's what he had. I mean, he had, I believe he said, around $170,000. So that's what we chose. We built a policy up until we got to that point of the amount of money that he had in the policy that he was going to use to give. And so he says, "You know what, I've got the money to give, and I'm going to go pull out $90,524. And he found out that number he did a little discounting math. I'm not going to really get into it to complicate it, but that was the amount of money they said they could get by with to start the ministry. So he pulled out $90,000 from his policy and just wrote a check. Wrote a check to the ministry. And he started paying himself back $1,000 a month back to his policy. Now, some of you, that's a big number. And he did that over 10. He essentially put himself on a 10-year loan. So he did that for 120 months. But what I want to say is maybe this wasn't, in your case, maybe it's not $90,000. Maybe it was $9,000 that you gave, and instead of $1,000 a month, it was $100 a month. I know most people, if they're asked to write a $9,000 check, that means a lot. But if you were just going to commit to $100 a month to give, well, hey, that's not so bad. Well, the same thing on a bigger number. 90 grand is a big check to write, but $1,000 a month is more manageable. But what if I could tell you that you could actually give the money, pay yourself back, and actually have the policy make up all the money that you gave, so it really didn't cost you anything to give it all? And then you'll see that's exactly what happens here. So he borrowed the 90 grand out, and he started repaying his policy back $1,000 a month, and he did that for 10 years, 120 months, until he completely paid back the entire loan that he had taken out to start it. And you'll see when he started, or when he gave the money in the first place, he had $171,000, and by the time he was finished paying it off, that account was up to $291,000. So there was 171 before he gave the 90, and he ended with $291,000 at the end of the time period. Well, guess what? If we add together the 10 years of payments, he only put in himself 120 grand. How much did he actually grow by inside the policy? He started with 171 before he gave. He took out 90. He put back in 120. So he only added an extra 30 grand out of his own pocket above and beyond what he started with, but he's sitting on 120 grand extra from 171 to 191. That means that he got back, so we even have it down here, the total payments was 120,000. But the cash value growth from before he even had given the gift to when he was finished was right at 120,000, which means he got all the money back that he gave. He got all 120 back that he gave, or that he used to give. And he was able to get all that back completely tax-free, having been able to write off the 90 that he gave and be able to reclaim the 120. He now has $300,000 almost to give. What if we did it again? and we gave another $100,000, and we did the same thing. So we were able to recover the entire cost of the donation without having to. We were able to give and know that we get it all back. What if you said, well, maybe I don't have $1,000 a month extra, but maybe you had $500 a month and you did 20 years instead of 10. There's just think about how freeing it can be to give without worrying or never paying it back. You know as I do, if you've been doing this, you decide how much to repay. So maybe you'll never want to repay, especially in your giving fund. The only reason you would repay is if you want to be able to give again and give a high number again. Other than that, just let them take it out of the death benefit and leave the rest to the charity so they still get, a big chunk, but there's no stress about it. So that's really what I wanted to share today. Whether you're wanting to build the giving fund just to give tithe every year, or whether you want to build it to give tithe and also be able to give large sums when that is needed, when the church has a building fund or something like that, you can be the keynote, gift to get that underway, which is just so much fun, and then be able to leave a huge amount of money when the time comes to the charity because you've built the machine, you've built the fund. You learn how to recapture the money. As I said, 90 grand is a big check. $1,000 a month is much more manageable. Same thing if it was 9 grand versus $100 a month. We can handle it on our own scale, no matter where we are. But this frees us up. So I just encourage you, above all else, use your imagination and try to find, or at least talk to me, to try to find a way to get the machine built, to get the machine off the ground, build the fund, and learn to use it properly. And I know that you'll see the freedom that we've seen and be able to give more and more without even feeling it, without even just be able to give cheerfully. As the Bible says, don't let the right hand know what the left hand is doing type of thing. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to give without even having a thought. Oh man, what if I need that money? Well, no, get that out of your brain. Create a system that always has the money to give, that always will work, and that will continue to pump out money. You see in this example here, it's a little bit bigger. It's a bigger example, but you'll notice the policy, without any premiums or repayments or anything going in, it grew by almost $14,000 the year after we were done repaying that the gift back. That's 14 grand that he can just send. He can send that to wherever that he didn't have to come up with. So that's what Ray's saying when he says, man, I'm having to find new places to give because the machine is just pumping out so much more money every year than it did last year, that I got to keep up with it to be able to give because I've got so much money to be able to do that with. But it's taken him 15 years of doing banking, to get it built. So think long term. God doesn't think short term either. Okay, think long term what you can build. Take the steps today that are needed. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. You should have a question box. In there that you can add questions to. I would suggest, I'm not going to be able to sit here and answer the questions, but if you would put inside the question box, just type in your name and your email in the question box if you would like to have some follow-up questions answered, okay, about this concept. So if you'd like to meet with me to maybe actually get something started, or if you'd like to just maybe converse via email on some questions, I'd ask that you just open the question box and just type in your name and your email, and I will get to you. I'll reach out to you and we can chat about what questions you have, or if you'd like to meet, of course, we can do it that way. But this is what we talk about when we say build the giving machine, build the giving fund. Use it for it, prosper with it, leave a legacy that will just bless people without even having to really use your a whole bunch of extra money, I guess I would say. Just mainly doing what you're already doing. And so we'll go ahead, and I think we did have some questions. I mean, I won't be able to get to very many of them, but they asked if there's typically a 4 or 5 year capitalization period. In this same example, is there a way to do this in year one? And that's a good question. Just like on that tithing one, absolutely you can do it in year one, but because the policy doesn't have as much cash value as you paid in premium, you will need to supplement it from somewhere, whether that's another policy, whether that's cash or savings or an account that you have elsewhere. You want to do that. So that's a good question. We'll just go ahead and let me know if you have questions, just go ahead and type in your name and email, and I will reach out to you. I get a list of all the questions that are asked afterwards, so I'll just reach out to the names and emails that are typed in, and we will either just answer the questions via email if they're simple, or if you would like to meet, I'd be happy to. I'll leave this open for just a little while longer so you can finish, typing your name and email in if you'd like to meet. But we are done for the day, so if you don't care to meet with me or have any questions answered, then that is perfectly fine. We will just see you on the next call. You're free to go.